what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it, and we hope you enjoy the little LSU spring game. Went down to Death Valley this Saturday. I got to be honest, I am still working through like a real, actual, in-depth rewatch, not just a kind of out the corner of my eye while bebopping around the house with kids and whatnot. But nothing too surprising. Garrett Nussmeier, obviously awesome, as was that first team offense. But I mean, his final stats, if you care about such things, I think 7 of 7 for like 187 and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, pretty damn good, I'd say. But again, I don't find this to be wholly surprising when you have a defense that basically runs, because it's a spring game, you don't want to show USC anything that you've been working on or maybe where your plans are. You're not game planning for this LSU offense. Like, you already have an offense that we know is markedly better than the defense, right? Or should be. Then you tell that defense, oh, you're only allowed to run 2 coverages and we're not blitzing. That offense should dominate. I'd have been far more concerned had Garrett, like, in the eternal camp paradox of, wait, is the offense good or the defense bad? The way bigger red flag would have been this first team offense struggling against the base of LSU's defense, which they absolutely should not. And they did not. For whatever that is worth. So, PJ Woodland had a nice pass breakup early on. There was a busted coverage by Ashton Stamps where I think Sage Ryan kind of got the public blame for it because it looks like Stamps thinks Sage Ryan's supposed to be over the top, but it's cover 3. Sage Ryan has the deep middle, so he's with the post, whereas Stamps is supposed to have the deep third that he's in, but he gets run by. So there were MAs. It wasn't great defensively, but again, it's not really also representative of why you hired Blake Baker defensively, because he can't, like, you hired him for scheme to manufacture matchups and to put guys in positions to succeed. You can't do that if you're literally not game planning the game.
Yeah, it's completely fair. And we kind of made a joke while we were talking about it here in studio. We're like, no, he's playing cover 2 and you're supposed to be playing cover 3. I was like, oh man, they're actually playing cover 2. Like, and that was kind of a joke, but it kind of wasn't, because last year, like, it was only 3 and quarters and that's all that you played. And so, like, the fact that they even have that in the playbook with the ability to play that is something that is more than what they had a year ago. And you're right, like, you're not going to see anything that's exotic. You're not going to see any different packages, and it's really on both sides, but you're not bringing different players from different spots. You're not going to see Harold Perkins line up on the edge and a peso package where you have all your pass rushers in. Like, for me, to watch a spring game, I just want to see, does it look like they know what they're doing? Mm-hmm. Like, does the fundamentals of football on the defensive side, where are they lining up on the defensive front? Are the linebackers false stepping everything, or are they actually going towards the football? Like, that's the only thing that I was paying attention to in the spring game, because, like, plays are going to be made, right? I mean, how many times, T-Bob, did you have a guy that was a walk-on or a guy that hasn't really played and he went out there and started in the spring game? Like, we understand, like, sometimes that situation happens. And so, like, I'm not really going to dive into the stats. Did Garrett Nussmeier look fantastic? He did. I expected him to look really good. But I'm just looking at the fundamentals, certainly defensively, because, like, as elementary as it sounds, they just weren't there a year ago.
No. And you mentioned Gabriel Relaford, Jake. Gabriel Relaford definitely seemed like he flashed yesterday if you're looking for defensive positives.
318.
2 sacks, 3.5 tiffles for Relaford. And to be fair, once you got past that first team offense, the defense probably did win the day, right? So speaking to some of just how young this defense is and maybe some of the talent hanging around in the background.
Shout out to our guy, Lon Sullivan. He actually had the starters, like who went out there with each unit, first, second, third team, all offense and defense.
LSUodyssey.com.
Yeah, check that out because he does a great job of breaking down certainly the spring game and really all things LSU football. But somebody that Taylor's been telling us about for, the last couple of weeks, PJ Woodland, like going out there, getting the start, is somebody that LSU's counting on. Now, they might add in the defensive backfield because when you go around the building, certainly defensive tackle is a spot that they still want to add some players through the portal, and this portal window opening up here this week. And then I still think they want to add a veteran presence in that room, in the corner room, because they got some safeties certainly that are veteran players in Sage Ryan and Major Burns, Gilbert, and others, but they want to add, I think, another veteran corner if there's somebody out there worth adding. But PJ Woodland, and Taylor, you can speak on this because you've been all over it. He feels like somebody that is going to come in from day one and have at least the opportunity to be a starter.
Yeah, I agree.
He's physical. I mean, when you watch him at practice, you're like, hey, you can tell that this was a little bit of an under-recruited guy, right? He looks like he wants it more than everybody. And we talked about it about a week and a half ago, that he's still only like 170 pounds, like over the summer and in fall camp. Like, he has a chance to gain a lot of weight and be even more physical at the line of scrimmage. That's what I love about him. I mean, he jams almost every receiver he's on.
And to Jake's point about cornerback and defensive tackle, Brian Kelly was asked about those two positions and said, quote, I think we answer those two. I think this defense will be a solid defense, but we've got to answer those two questions moving forward. So, yeah, expect more movement in that regard. Other kind of takeaways, Josh Williams looked really solid. He's clearly going to be your RB1 for a pretty dirty move. Who's 14 again? I'm still thinking
that's Jordan Gilbert.
I'm thinking Andre Sam. Okay, that's Gilbert. The A&M transfer. Yeah, he broke him down pretty nicely. I thought that what was it? I think that Mason Taylor is going to be such a critical piece of this offense. I think everything we talked about in terms of making up for the Jaden Daniels rushing attack, the kind of short intermediate stuff, setting up 2nd and 5s, 3rd and 3s. I think Mason Taylor is going to be massive in that regard. Kamari Pimpton had a couple nice moments in this game as well, and you saw a lot of 2 tight end sets with Taylor and Mac Markway where they can either run the ball or they can throw it. And I thought, Jake, you saw more creative kind of gap scheme runs, a lot of pulling guards and other things that you haven't seen nearly as much over the last couple of years.
I think you're going to get a lot of that. I truly think that is going to be something that's implemented into the offense because, well, I think for a couple of reasons. It wasn't a part of the scheme and what you did. You were an inside zone team, and that was what you were, and you weren't really going to run anything else. Now, you also had a quarterback that in the zone scheme, we know he was a threat because teams had to respect Jaden Daniels, and is he going to pull it? And you had that nice little third option with Mason Taylor kind of in the flats. That was a big part of what LSU did in the run game, and they didn't really, venture off from that. But I love seeing gap scheme runs because it makes the defense really have to imagine every run being up and not just a zone run and different blocking schemes. And as you know, when we saw it against Florida, and what was that, 21, like LSU had not run counter to that point. They break counter out 17 times in that game, and then you look up and Ty Davis-Price has the all-time school single-game rushing record.
Yeah.
And so if you have that ability to be able to switch up your run game when you're looking for more rushing yards and the ability to run it, because you had a quarterback go for over 1,000 yards. You're not going to have that this year, and that's okay. You can still be effective, but it can't just be inside zone anymore because you don't have that same quarterback. And so inside and outside zone, I'd love to see them run some outside zone, power, counter, G-pull, like whatever you want to end up running.
Yeah, Avo Marzwani in the chat says, didn't Austin Osbury end up having a good game? And yes, he played very well defensively, a player that could maybe end up factored in. In terms of Weeks, I thought, Weeks made a couple plays, also missed a couple tackles.
Kind of
early on.
West?
Yes, younger one. Why am I getting confused? Witt, yes. Fody. I'm trying to think about Harold Perkins' plays. He had a pretty nice tackle on Aaron Anderson in which you saw the speed come flying in out of nowhere. I thought he looked fine in that regard. Did anybody jump out to y'all after Kyron Lacey in terms of the wide receiver pecking order?
Well, CJ Daniels did some nice things. He's a guy that's competing for that number 3 spot. Everybody says that the top 2 spots are kind of cemented in who's going to be that number 3 guy. I thought CJ Daniels had some nice catches.
Yeah, I mean, Bilbo says I fully expect C.J. Daniels and Kyron Lacey to go 1,000 yards each with this offense. I mean, Kyron, I believe, will absolutely hit 1,000 yards, and I think he'll have a damn good chance of getting a second one.
Yeah.
It's just a question of who that is going to be. Xavier Thomas, obviously, I mean, he looked pretty solid, and he's the only guy that really had any flash on that awful Mississippi State offense last season. So he's someone that could be poised to take a big step forward in a more competent offense.
I'm trying to look up the stats right now because, gosh, it's a long time ago. But 2005, Benny Brazil, I think it was 2005, Benny Brazil to us was a big-time playmaker. Now, Benny didn't lead the team in receiving. We had Dwayne Bowe. We had Buster Davis. We had Early Doucette. So those receivers, obviously, were your go-to guys. But when Benny Brazil came in, we knew what Benny could do. Benny was going to stretch the field.
Yeah.
He was going to get over the top of the defense, and he was going to make a big play. I'm thinking of the 2005 Florida game during the day where Benny made a key play in that game, and he did it multiple times. So if you're looking at receiver, that's what Chris Hilton can be for you.
Mm-hmm.
He might not go out there and he might not catch 7 passes and have 114 yards. That might not be what he is. Now, if he does, that's great. But he can be that guy. And DJ Chark had some of this before he became like a receiver one. He had some of this in him as well, where he was the guy that stretched the field. So this receiver room for me is find your role. What is your role going to be within the offense? Again, because last year, that's an anomaly. You're not going to have 2 guys that are 2 top 5 receivers in the country maybe, but that's okay. 05 Benny Brazil gave us so much juice, just like I think Chris Hilton can give this offense. And so for me, I'm looking for the receiver room. Kyron Lacey's your 1. We know that.
Yeah.
And then what are the roles for 2, 3, and 4? Because if you figure out those roles and you buy into those roles, then you can be highly effective.
Yeah, and kind of will there be a true number 2, or will it be kind of more role based and kind of picking and choosing spots? I don't know. We'll see. Again, I like all the overall talent in that room, though. Any other look? The O-line looked awesome. Obviously, the ones that they should have against that crew where people aren't game planning against you. I thought I still want to dive deeper on him, but I thought DJ Chester acquitted himself very well in terms of how he played. Didn't really look like he missed a beat. Solid calls. Again, pretty easy mentally on the center. The spring game is, though, so I would have been more alarmed if it looked like there were communication issues or anything up front.
Just to back up, because my memory going back all the way to 2005. So Benny, on the year, he had 13 catches right at 300 yards, 22.5 yards per catch.
Yeah.
With 3 touchdowns. And so that was his role within that team. It's you're not going to make a play every game, but when you do, it's going to be highly impactful, and it's going to be a shot, and it's going to be a big explosive play.
See, and Hilton has the potential to do that, but it should be more still.
I'm saying he can do more, and if he does more, that's great. But I'm saying you have different receivers with different skill sets to where if it is multiple guys, that is okay if you don't have a Malik Neighbors and a Brian Thomas. If you have a Kyron Lacey, and then you have 3 guys that kind of fill those other roles.
Yeah. It seems like C.J. Daniels probably maybe the slot there, a lot of mismatches there. Still wonder if Aaron Anderson can ever get it going. Xavier Thomas in that mix. We don't know about Shelton Sampson really as much just yet. Is it Parker, who also seemed to get a lot of the play? Kyle Parker seemed to get a lot of the play come this spring as well. So nothing groundbreaking, but again, I kind of not unlike what we expected, although it does end in a 34 tie for the spring game, which is funny because they have such a weird scoring system with the defense getting 2 points for a PBU and X amount for missed field goal and all this stuff, and yet here they sit and they ended up tied. Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.